Well, welcome, barbershop lovers. We are back for another webinar here on the internets. We are happy to have you here for another wonderful conversation with our pal Joe. Some quick news in the CDD Course Director Development land before we get going. I wanted to point out highlight a few quick things. Be sure you check out the outstanding in front videos that are on YouTube on the Barbershop Harmony 38 channel on YouTube. They are some great tools, sequential videos meant for the beginner, the intermediate, or any level director to review or move forward in their directing. Some great tools that the Course Director Development Committee and Larry Dodge are putting out there for you. So go check those out at your own leisure on YouTube. Very cool. Don't forget that coming up we have what used to be called districts. We're calling it NEDCon this year. Get your CJ20 in for your chorus. It's going to make it easier for your events committee to plan what is needed as far as space and rooms and things like that for the choruses. And keep your ears open to your email about announcements about the contestant matrix and where you're going to be warming up and singing that day. It's going to be very new and very different, but if we get our CJ20s in soon, they'll know what to expect. So please get that information in as soon as you can. You can always go back and edit it online after you submit it, but they like to know that we're coming. So please go check that out. Webinar archives. We've put all the old webinars online on the director's webpage on anydistrict.org. Please go check those out. You can catch up if you've missed them and go back and review what we've done. We've had Rob Mance and Terry Ludwig and a bunch of great guys come and join us and can't wait to get started today. I wanted to point out to you, just remind you that we have also voice coaches from NEDAC, your Association of Champions, have volunteered their time. Let's see if I can pull it up here. The voice coaches from NEDAC. I have it on an Excel spreadsheet here. Can you see the Excel spreadsheet I have up there, guys? Chime in.
Sure can.
Excellent. So those are so far our volunteers
There it is.
camps who will be happy to come to your chorus for expenses, no fees, and be a singing coach for you. I recognize that not every director out there has a vocal background. So we want to give folks those kinds of resources. So if you want Kurt Booten or Joey Constantine to come visit you, just go call them up or email them, and they are happy to come and help you out. And I can absolutely send a link out to this spreadsheet again if you like, just as a resource. Okay. Want to remember that we have that available to us. And lastly, CDWI, Chorus Directors Workshop Intensive. I'm plugging that heavily because we had such a success in Montreal this past spring. Going to try to pull one off this fall also, location to be announced. But if you would like to do one, if you would like to be a participant in the CDWI, be a director and have coaching for you for the entire day, it's awesome. You got to go try it. And it's a great tool that our society provides. Please contact me so I know that there's interest. If you've already done one, they have CDWI Level 2, and we have folks out there who can come and do that for you if you've done that before. So as you're not bored with the same old thing, we'll advance you right along. It's a great tool. Please contact me if you're interested in that. So our guest speaker, as you well know, is our pal Joe Cerutti. There's his email address. He directs the Alexandria Harmonizers and the Pride of Baltimore, and he is the, I wrote this down, Program Manager for Outreach Development. Did I get that right, Joe?
You got it right.
All right. And can tell us all about grant writing and outreach programs that the Society's doing. So he's got a wealth of knowledge to share with us this evening. Joe, why don't you start us off with a quick bio, perhaps, of you and your background and what got you to the front line of Alexandria Harmonizers, and then we'll talk about how you run things down there.
Sure. So just so you know, the email address that you have is incorrect.
Ooh.
Just the last name is spelled incorrectly.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So I've been singing and interested in music my entire life, as early as I can remember. singing since elementary school, in church, um, uh, student conducting in high school. My undergrad degree is in music education from Five Towns College, where I started barbershopping for the very first time. Um, Met one of the college professors there was a Mid-Atlantic District champ. He was the lead of Ed Waishie's quartet. And that's where I started barbershopping, singing in a collegiate quartet with the guys in Round Midnight. And then we started the very first collegiate barbershop chapter at that college, and that chorus is still in existence, the Five Towns College chapter. And then I moved on quickly after that to do my graduate degree in conducting at Boston University.
Woohoo!
And that's where I had my experience, my NED experience, singing in some quartets up there, and conducting the Women of Note in Harmony Inc. and the Sounds of Concord, now Vocal Revolution. And let's see, then right after that, I had auditioned while living in Boston. I had auditioned for the Harmonizers, and I had moved down to the DC area to conduct them in January of 2007. So we're going on 9 years, which is pretty unbelievable to think about. And a few years after moving down there, I also started directing the Pride of Baltimore, which is a Sweet Adeline chorus.
Excellent, excellent. And so, just give us maybe a 30,000-foot overview of how you like to run things in Alexandria, or perhaps how it's grown in you said 2007, in 8 years since you've been there. Perhaps it always hasn't been what it is today.
Sure, I can talk about that a little bit. I kind of walked into a very interesting situation when I joined the Harmonizers. The Harmonizers, for anyone who doesn't know the history of the Alexandria Harmonizers, they're a 4-time international champion chorus. And they had last won a gold medal in 1998. And they were always pretty well known for being a 120-man chorus. Very large chorus. And when I took them over at the time, they were going through a bit of a change. And they were down to about 45 members or so. They were looking to identify the higher quality singers and cut down on numbers, but really see if they could bump up in quality. And they had gone to the district competition, and they had won that district competition. And then after that, my predecessor had retired from the chorus, and I had the opportunity to step in. And from that point on, they had 50. I think I went to my first international with 53 guys, and we came in, I think, 13th place, scoring somewhere in the probably low 80s. And over the course of the past 8.5 years or so, we've been fortunate to place as high as 3rd and are currently 4th. And our numbers are all the way back up to 120 again. But I think that probably the success that I have had with the Harmonizers is probably largely a part of my ability or necessity to delegate. The Harmonizers have such a wealth of leadership on the musical and administrative side of things. And I think that if there's anything that got us to where it is, it was me listening to the leaders, allowing the leaders to kind of help me along and shape me as a young barbershop director. And I would say still in the rehearsal today, we have a 3-hour rehearsal from 7 to 10, and I'm probably only in front of the chorus for about an hour of it.
Wow.
Certainly we have a break, and we have a break, and we have a business meeting and things like that. But I have an incredible associate director, also singing judge and lead of Da Capo, Tony Colosimo. And I have an incredible choreographer and visual coach who is also a full-time BHS staff member named Carlos Barillo. And in addition to great incredible section leaders, incredible assistant directors. So I think that it's having a great team that makes a great leader, makes a great chorus. So I think that if there's any one thing that I would peg our success on, it's just working really, really well together as a team, administratively and musically.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you have that you're fortunate enough to have an awesome team like that.
Yeah. Oh, very, very fortunate.
Now, did you walk into such a team, or did you build that on your own over the years that you've been there?
No, I walked into such a team. I think even in 2007 with the 53 guys that I took to our first international, there were many, many guys that were a part of the previous 4 gold medals. Mm-hmm. And I think instead of me walking into the chorus and just saying, okay, I'm going to make my mark on this chorus and I'm going to tell them what to do, I think one of the first things that I did was walk in and say, okay, what made this chorus a gold medal chorus back in the 80s and 90s? And why isn't it happening right now? Now, we're certainly not a gold medal chorus, but we've risen again into the medals, and I think that a lot of that, especially looking back to my start with the chorus, I had a graduate degree in conducting, but I think that it was really understanding specifically in having a chorus in the Washington, D.C. area, you have to know how to manage and motivate your singers. And motivating a bunch of military guys is different than motivating a bunch of farmers, or different than motivating a bunch of blue collar guys, or, I really had to get to know my guys, and I really had to trust my leadership because they knew what had worked in the past. They knew it was effective with the chorus. And while we didn't necessarily want to go back to what the chorus was in the 80s and 90s, as wonderful as it was, the society has evolved since then. But knowing what it was that motivated those guys was a huge part of what I learned from the leaders that I had in the chorus at the time as to how to motivate my chorus to be better than they were, and to grow musically and membership and in every way.
That's really interesting. It's not something we think about often, and certainly not something they teach you in conducting school. At least not when I got my bachelor's. That wasn't. I don't know if they that motivates rural people versus a military bunch of people, but that's fascinating. It really is. So what did you say you listened to your leadership? What kinds of things did you have to change or adjust as far as motivating your singers?
Well, I don't know that I had to change or adjust anything because I was new and I was young. So there wasn't this was this was an opportunity for me to I had only directed prior to that in little stints for a year or so. I don't think I was directing the Sounds of Concord or Women of Note or even the Five Towns College chapter for all that long before I moved to the Harmonizers. So I didn't have to break myself of many habits. And it was an interesting opportunity for me to be able to walk into this international level chorus and start things brand new. It was also very difficult for me growing up. When I started barbershopping, I was in the Mid-Atlantic District, so that was where I really got my barbershop start. So the Harmonizers were idols to me. They were barbershop icons, and many of the men in the Alexandria Harmonizers. Steve White is a 4 or 5-time district champ quartet guy. Terry Reynolds was always the associate director of the Harmonizers, and these were men that I was now walking into a chorus at the age of 25, and I was to direct them in a chorus. So it was a bit overwhelming, but those were the guys and a number of other guys that had had really rallied around me. And it was a very interesting time in the harmonizers for being a chorus with such a grand tradition. I believe we're in our 68th or 69th year, so we're a fairly old chorus, and we have a grand tradition and history and heritage. And it was a pretty daunting thing for me to step into a chorus that old, that steeped in tradition, with a lot of guys that I really had a great amount of respect for and knowledge of their history. To walk in at 25 years old and to tell them what to do was really not something I was comfortable doing. It wasn't anything that I really wanted to do. I wanted to come in, and those guys truly rallied around me. So the one bit of information that I always love to latch onto is, if you look back in the history of the choruses in the Barbershop Harmony Society, we kind of identify them. We have being barbershoppers from Washington, D.C., Greg Line, who used to coach the chorus very often, used to call the harmonizers the Pentagon guys, because we just have, I guess I'll say, we have a bunch of data nerds, and our guys go crazy for data. And we do all sorts of reports on scores and things like that. And one of the things that we've noticed is that if you look over the course of history in the Barbershop Harmony Society, you can note dynasties when choruses were winning consecutive gold medals, and when the Louisville Thoroughbreds were winning, and the Vocal Majority has had the longest dynasty of all, and the Masters of Harmony, and different times when choruses were very, very successful. And the choruses in the 50s and 60s and 70s, many of them who were winning gold medals at the time are not around anymore. And right now in the history of the Barbershop Harmony Society, we are the only chorus that has really dropped off the map and had a comeback into the medals again. And I think that I don't credit myself for much of that, but I credit the chapter for really being able to reinvent themselves when it came to realizing that they wanted to be the quality chorus again, and what that was going to take. Mm-hmm. And they rallied themselves around me at the time to make sure that I was not going to fail as their director, which is something that I will forever be indebted to them for. I've learned more in my time as their director with the coaches that we have brought in, and the things that we have done over the past 8.5 years than I think I could have learned in my undergrad or graduate work. So it's amazing, and I think a lot of other barbershoppers will also say that it's amazing the wealth of education you can get from barbershop, even if you are a trained musician.
I would echo that wholeheartedly, 100%. I went to the same school as Joe, and got a good education there. But boy, did I learn when I started directing and quartetting in barbershop. It just opened up so many new avenues and opened my eyes to what could be done. I'm glad someone else feels that way too. It's not just me.
Yeah. Well, every time I've had the absolute fortune to teach at Harmony University, and this was my 10th year at Harmony University. So 2 years ago, I don't know if I have these numbers exactly correct, so bear with me, but it was 2 years ago when we had, I think, the number of educators that were not involved already in barbershop was something like 7 or 8. And last year in 2015, that number went up to, I think, something in the mid-20s or something like that. And this year at Harmony University, we had, I think, just under 100 educators. Wow. And these are all people who have degrees in music education, at least one degree, if not more. We had a few people who were the directors of the head of the choral activities at major universities, and we had just under 100 of them. And so Kirk Young and I were both teaching a music educator seminar with all of those music educators, and they all agreed. They all couldn't believe the level of education they got at a Barbershop Harmony Society event. And I think it's just a huge feather in our cap as barbershoppers as to the evolution of our organization, and the direction that we're pointed right now is one of absolute professionalism and legitimacy. And I'm so excited with the way our entire organization is going.
That's awesome. Me too. Me too. Well, tell us, since we're headed a little bit in that direction, tell us about your role as program manager of outreach developments. You said you were talking to me earlier offline about how you're helping folks do grant writing and get some funds for programs they're doing locally. Tell us about what you do, and then maybe as a tangent, tell us how you think we as directors should be involved in that kind of process.
Sure. So I have been full-time staff for the Barbershop Harmony Society going on, I think 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And it was right at the time when we hired Marty Monson as our CEO, and I was an international board member at the time, and Marty was looking for someone to step on and do the youth and harmony things that we had going on, and I was very fortunate to step into that position, and that position quickly grew from youth and harmony to just outreach in general and getting our communities to sing again. The lack of singing in America is becoming an epidemic. Back in the day, there were, after dinner, everyone would gather around the piano and sing, and that's, singing is something that is still happening very, very much in other countries around the world, but it's not as much as it used to in the U.S. And with that downfall of singing that we're noticing, which is so unfortunate, we're also in this time where we're recognizing all of these incredible benefits to singing. So I think we're starting to realize that we're not just an organization of 20,000 barbershoppers that like to sing barbershop, but we're starting to realize that we really have an opportunity and a responsibility to our communities to get them singing again and help them to sing again and realize all of those benefits. And the world, the country would be a better place with all of that singing. So we quickly developed we went from youth and harmony to this outreach team of 5 employees now, and the outreach development team focuses on the Youth Chorus Festival, which takes place at the Midwinter Convention. It focuses on the collegiate contest or the youth quartet contest that takes place at our international convention and at all of our districts preliminarily. We also have a grant process, which this past grant process in 2015 awarded slightly over $250,000 back to our chapters, thanks to the donors of the Harmony Foundation. We also have educational tours and community outreach, and we also have one full-time staff member who is working on a curriculum to go into the schools in Nashville that don't have music programs and teach a cappella singing to the underserved communities in Nashville. So it's a really, really busy team. And one of the things that I think I'm most excited about is the grant process that we have, because we are taking all of that money that is being donated, not all of it, but a wonderful donation from the Harmony Foundation to go back to our chapters so that our chapters can go and affect their communities positively. So we have two different types of grants. One is the Vision and Direct grant, and it's only for projects that are focused externally, that have nothing to do with our membership. It's not for giving a scholarship to Harmony University. It's not for buying new risers. But if you're going to go into your community and do a project or an event, that's what the Vision and Direct grants are for. The Vision grants are for $1,500 and less, and the direct grants are for $1,500 and less, and the Vision grants are for anything over $1,500 that's externally focused. The second type of grant that I had mentioned is an innovation grant, and that can be used internally on our own members or our own chapters or districts. If we wanted it to, it could also be used externally as well. And that's for a grant of any amount that is innovative and is going to positively affect one of many outcomes identified by Marty and the executive team at the Barbershop Harmony Society. So some really wonderful ways to get some financial support in really making an impact in your community. And we are just about to kick that process off. Actually, tomorrow morning, we are going to kick that process off. And we will be kicking it off for the months of September and October. We'll close the process at the end of October, and we will review all of the applications November and December, and we will award no later than January 1st of 2016 for all funding in 2016. So if anyone's interested in that, you can find out more by going to barbershop.org/grants.
Excellent, excellent. So how do you see chorus directors' role in those kinds of outreach programs? I mean, that's a sort of a broad question, but our audience is, mostly directors. So, I might be thinking about maybe my chapter should be reaching out to our local school district in some way or something like that. What role should I have in that?
Well, I think the greatest role we can have in that is, I suppose, through, one of the things that we always think about the most. We're so fixated as an organization on membership. And is that membership number going up or is it going down? And one of the things that I realized, I suppose, being a director as well as being a society board member, is that we cannot affect membership. Membership is a lagging indicator. And we can't say, I want membership to grow and just make membership grow. Membership is going to grow by one person walking into our rehearsal and having a great time and saying, hey, I love this. I want to come back and I want to do it again. And I would say 95% of the time, that director, that guest walking in and saying, hey, I want to come back next week, is entirely based upon the experience they have, and the person in control of that experience is the director. So I think if we're looking for our choruses to get better, if we're looking for our organization to grow, we can't continue to be the best kept secret in our community. And the best way to get out there is to get into our schools, get into our community centers, and let people know that we're there. So any work that we can do in our own community, in our schools, even bringing music to senior centers, are ways that we can let our community know that we're there. And if they happen to, one of Marty, our CEO, Marty Monson's big things, which I'm sure everyone has seen in numerous Harmonizer magazines, is that no strings attached. We would never do this work to get new members. We would never invite them to something so that they join the chorus. But I think that we will find, if the community knows that we're there and we are pouring resources into the community, that we may get a few guys who walk through our door. And I think it's our responsibility as directors to get out into our community and not just worry about those 2 contest songs that we do every year. So get out into our community and then make sure that when the community comes to us, and if they happen to walk through our doors and they are a guest in our rehearsal, that they have the greatest time in the world. And they walk out saying, hey, I can't wait to go back next week, sorry.
Thank you for that. I want to open it up to Russell and anyone else who's chimed in over the course of the conversation so far, and ask if there's any questions from the floor. I'm looking at the chat window here to make sure that there aren't any coming in from there. Russell, anything you want to chime in on and ask Joe about what's going on?
I'm trying to formulate something here just to one of the things you talked about, Joe, was motivating different people from different walks of life. And I mean, if you have a group that is primarily in an urban setting or a rural setting or a military area, you've got primarily that type of individual, I assume. But if you've got a really eclectic mix of, some, like you said, blue-collar workers, some white-collar workers, some with great musical training, some who, are from more rural backgrounds, a whole mix of all this, some with military experience and some without. How do you find ways to motivate this whole group all at the same time?
It's I think the most important thing that we can do as directors, quite honestly, and we cannot motivate unless we know which direction we need to motivate them. There is a place in our society for the social choruses that get together. They love to sing the songs that they've been singing for 5 years in the chorus, and they use it as a night out to lift their voice in song and forget about their troubles, and they're not really focused on quality. And quite honestly, that's okay. There is a place in the society for those sorts of groups, but you'd never know that that's what they want if you don't listen to what they want. So, motivating is important, but motivating towards what the group is interested in is difficult. I guess it's just really important to make sure that you're motivating them towards what they want to do and not what you want them to do. So if I'm a very, very competitive director and I walk into a chorus that is social, and I try to motivate them to go to contest, you have to know how to do that and what motivates them. I was coaching years ago. I was coaching the Hawaii chapter, and I had walked in and I kept talking to them about how better they were singing and how that would affect their score when they go to contests. And I realized that I was not getting through to them. I really wasn't motivating them. And I talked to them a little bit, and I realized being in Hawaii, they don't get to go to contests very often. And they had shared that the big thing to them, the thing that motivates them every day, is their annual show. They just have the greatest annual show. Everyone in Hawaii comes out to see them do this performance. And I had to change my way of thinking as a coach to motivate them. And I started to talk to them about, well, how many tickets do you sell? And, someone tell me about your show, and their eyes started to light up. Light bulbs started going off. And I noticed, okay, if I'm going to motivate this chorus to be better, it's going to be through that show. So it's kind of asking your members what they want, asking your members what the next step is for them, because every single chorus is different, and it should be. Based on what they want, based on where they're located, is something that makes all of our choruses incredibly unique. How quickly they learn songs, how invested they are in contest or improvement, or how many repertoire songs they have, and things like that are all things that need to go, that you need to take into account in really knowing your chorus and knowing where they want to go, and charting out a 6-month plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. So for me, being in Washington, D.C., it's a lot of the military stuff. We have a lot of opportunities to do patriotic events, an Armed Forces Day. We were recently the entertainment for the 70th anniversary of D-Day in Normandy, France. And 2 years before that, we had taken a trip to China. Now, I've got a chorus of about 120 guys, and when we went to China, we brought about 60 of them. And it was, to be honest, it was a very, very inexpensive trip. When we decided to go to D-Day, when we received the invitation to entertain in France, it was about 3 times the cost of our China trip, and we took, I think, 110 men with us. So that, to me, is a huge indicator of what my guys are motivated to do. So sometimes, showing up for a contest, well, we find that very important and we work very hard for it. But when it comes to honoring the military and the veterans, is something that I know motivates my men very, very much. Performing in a local elementary school on Veterans Day, again, is something that I realize I get an overwhelming amount of my men to show up to. So those are little things that I tuck away in knowing what I need to say to them, or the kind of opportunities that I need to look for if we are going to be if I'm going to be successful in motivating them to improve from week to week.
Joe, I'm wondering about that along those lines. Do the courses you direct have any kind of written mission statement, or is this just sort of something you've sort of felt out over the years that you've learned by listening to them? I always hear the terms 3-year plan and 5-year plan, but I never hear a lot of mission statement, what we want to be when we grow up as a chorus. And I've encouraged my groups to do that along my career, but I wonder if that's something you guys experience too, or how you work that.
That's a great question, Eric, and timely that you ask it. The Alexandria Harmonizers, we have decided over the past 2 years or so to change the direction we are going as an organization and to align ourselves more like a choral arts organization within our community. Again, like I said earlier, we don't want to be the best kept secret anymore. We're tired of hearing that phrase and saying that phrase, and we are taking a number of steps to become more aligned with choral arts organizations, community choral arts organizations. One of the first things that we realized, we started to have guest speakers come to our board meetings. And we would give 20 to 30 minutes to a guest speaker to tell us a few things. We would ask them what they know about the Alexandria Harmonizers, which was very, very interesting. Some of them knew absolutely nothing. Some of what they knew was false. They made assumptions on what barbershop was, and they figured that they knew us. But then the other thing that we asked them is what makes their organization successful. And we learned that a lot of the community choral arts organizations had community members involved in them. And I don't mean singing in them, I mean involved in the overall leadership of the organization. So we looked at other the executive board of other choral organizations, and they had non-singing members as a part of them, community members, and many of them were actually paying. They were buying in to be a part of that board. The more we look at that, we realize that it's fairly standard for strong choral arts organizations to have that sort of administrative board. So we had petitioned the Barbershop Harmony Society's board to ask if we could, unfortunately, in the bylaws of the Barbershop Harmony Society, it states that all of our board members have to be members of the Barbershop Harmony Society. Right. So we had petitioned the board to allow non-members to be a part of the chapter boards, and they had granted that waiver as long as we ran it as a program, and it's running right now. It's called the Open Board Program. So we have 4 non-members as a part of our board, and one of them is actually a woman. So she is the first female BHS chapter board member in the history of the organization. And these are 4 community members who are invested in the success of our chapter, being a choral group in the Alexandria area. And it's been incredibly valuable to have them guide us through becoming a more legitimate and professional organization. And the reason I tell you all of that is because the thing that came out of that, of having them recently on our board, is that we have just changed the vision statement for the Alexandria Harmonizers. The vision statement was very general, very vague, to be the premier men's, singing organization in the Washington, D.C. area, something like that. And while I'm sure I would like to think that our new vision statement is on our website. I would like to think that it is, and I can't say it verbatim right now, but it includes more. It is still one sentence, but it does include more about the education that we are providing to the community and things along those lines. So it is a statement that we can now look at everything that we do as a choral organization and say, is what we're doing with this performance meeting our mission and vision for the chapter? And I think that we will find years from now that that change of that statement is going to really help us align our thinking as we become more relevant to our community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We get so wrapped up sometimes in being barbershoppers that we forget to look outward, and what a wonderful idea of involving community members at the board level to help drive that.
Yeah. So there are that open board project was open up to other choruses to participate. And I think that there are probably a dozen or so choruses that are participating in that, just like we are. Choruses as large as, I believe, the Ambassadors of Harmony and Toronto Northern Lights are doing it. Huh. And then there are very, very small 15-man choruses that are hoping to get someone in their community to help them to become greater. So it's going to be a great tool, and I'm positive that the reporting from all of that will be available, I think, by the end of the year.
Fantastic. Keep us posted on that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So let's change gears here a little bit. Talk to us about. I'm going to say what your warm-ups are like, but I'd like to know specifically, since you mentioned you have a great number of military guys in your chorus. Do you spend a fair amount of time, or whoever warms up your chorus, maybe it's Tony? Do you spend a fair amount of time on vocal tension?
Who doesn't?
All right.
I mean, there are maybe a few of the top choruses like Westminster, Central Standard that might not have to work as hard on that sort of thing as other choruses. But I've got I think the youngest member in the Harmonizers right now is 16, and the oldest is in his mid-80s. Yeah. So to say that vocal tension is something that we work on is probably an understatement. I don't know that there's anything that we do where we're not trying to release that tension. I do not do the warm-ups for the Alexandria Harmonizers. I do the warm-ups primarily for Pride of Baltimore, but I would say that they're very close to the approach is close to the same. It's getting the chorus focused. It's doing anything that you can't do in the car, on your own. We have a very, very precious amount of time together, and we don't come there to warm up our voice. We can kind of do that in the car. We use that warm up as a time to focus ourselves as a chorus, to make many sound like one. And we start off by doing very, very simple things, maybe just some clapping to really not to just work on rhythms, but to really see if we can synchronize ourselves together Let the busy work day, again, in Washington, D.C., the traffic is one of the most god-awful things I've ever seen anywhere, ever. So, we take a bit of an opportunity to kind of shake all of that off and get our guys focused on being 100 men sounding like one. Singing some unison notes, working on some breathing, and then as that warm-up goes on, it's about a 15-minute warm-up, and as that warm-up goes on, the things that we do become a little more complex. We start to widen the range. We will add in some harmony, and the rule is kind of we're not going to start the rehearsal until we're really singing great things. So if that means that the warm-up has to go to 20 minutes because Tony is not terribly confident at the level that we're at right now, he'll keep plugging on in that warm-up until he knows that he has a great chorus to turn over to me. And then the very first thing that we do right after that warm-up is we will sing a tag or two. And these are not tags like so that we can gang sing. The point of the tag, and right now we only do 2 tags. We don't teach new tags. It's just an opportunity to perform a very short amount of music at an incredibly high level. And that will kind of allow me, once I get up in front of the chorus after the warm-up, to know that we are ready to go. And fortunately, there's not been a moment in the last 6 months or so where I've gotten up and the tag bombed and we really had to go back to the drawing board. But it really challenges the chorus, the individual member, to focus on being great at the very, very beginning of the rehearsal. And wherever we end up starting that rehearsal, we only go up from there. Which is great. But one of the things that we put into play just a few months ago is singing that tag. That was something that we got from one of our coaches, David Wright, and the Ambassadors of Harmony. And we did that leading up into Pittsburgh, and we still do that at the beginning of every rehearsal. And it allows us to take a very small piece of music and master it at a very, very high level, and it sets the tone for the evening.
So I got to ask, what are the tags?
Oh, well, one of the tags is both of them are just 2 favorite tags of mine. One is just a really loud tag to just peel the paint, and that is Gene Cockcroft's What an Unusual Day tag.
Okay.
And then the other tag that we sing, which starts pretty loud and then gets pretty soft, is Jim Clancy's tag to the song I Believe.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to Russell. Do you have any questions you want to chime in on? Sorry, I was just looking at my checklist of things to talk about.
Oh, this has been great. As I do every time I hear Joe speak, I'm learning all kinds of stuff. So,
you've heard me speak enough, Russell, that I would be surprised if you had any questions.
But I'm serious. Every time, there's always something more there. It's always great to just sit at your feet and soak up all this wisdom.
Well, one of the questions I hear a lot from directors around the district, and we heard it last month with our conversation with Rob too, is about riser placement and how you place the guys on the risers. So we'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's there are 100 ways to go about riser placement, and I think that I've tried a number of excuse me. I think I've tried a number of different ways throughout the years. We have stood in sections. We will generally stand in sections for things that are new. when there is strength in numbers, and when we're doing something that's new, we will always stand in sections. So there's generally a part of almost any rehearsal where we are standing in sections. I tend to keep my tenors. I think over the course of the 8.5 years that I've been with the harmonizers, I think I have always kept the tenors together. I'm not quite sure why I do that, but I would say that the tenors, my tenor section has always had a very strong sense of unity, and I never wanted to mess around with that. They're always quickest to learn music. They are always quickest to memorize it. They are always, for the most part, the most in tune, the most unified section, and I've never messed with that a whole bunch. However, I have messed with having a bass wedge. I have messed with resonance placement. I have messed with the theory of threes and things along those lines. And I think that I would say right now we stand, except for the tenor section, we stand completely shotgun. And I think that I work with my section leaders. We rarely take a night. It takes way too long to voice place 120 men.
Right.
And while it's important, I think what we do is I work very, very closely with my assistant directors and section leaders, and we keep a chart, a riser placement chart at rehearsal every week, and we play around in every rehearsal and trying a few different things and moving 5 people around and taking a very strong singer and placing them just behind the window of 2 new singers, 2 new members that we have, to see what happens when we place a great singer behind those voices and his voice is singing through those and reinforcing it. And then there are, we will take a strong singer and we'll place him next to 2 other harmony parts so that they can hear the lead part, if you will. But there's not anything right now that I'm using that I would recommend. What I guess I would recommend above all is to experiment and find out what works best for your chorus. When I'm coaching smaller choruses, I tend to find a lot of success in voice placement, in spending an hour listening to each voice and moving them left and right. When you have a chorus of 20 men or 30 men, where you place the 3 tenors, or God forbid you only have 3 basses, where you place those 3 basses and how specifically you place them is so important and completely changes the sound of the chorus. So I think for smaller choruses, I guess it's important for any chorus, really. But if you happen to have a chorus that has an unusual balance of parts, you've got 3 tenors, 10 leads, 10 basses, and 2 baritones, or any sort of strange balancing of parts, what you do with that, where you place them on the risers, even with that one section, how you make those 3 basses stand, who is the one that stands in front, or, do you separate them? All depends on the strength of the members and the resonance of the voice. So I wouldn't say that there's always one way to go about doing it. It all depends on how that is. But it's incredibly important, and it has unbelievable effects on the overall sound of the chorus if you do it right.
That's a good point. Again, I've never quite thought about that in that way, that it's going to affect the small chorus a lot differently than it will the 120-man chorus, but you're right. Spot on.
Yeah, and I'm sure if I had the time to spend an entire 3-hour rehearsal on voice placing 120 men, then it would probably have the same incredible impact as it would in a 20-man chorus. I guess the frequency at which we are performing and learning new material, I'm unfortunately not afforded that time to dig down and work on something so intricate right now in my rehearsals. So I guess it's regardless of size, it's incredibly important and incredibly effective. But I have seen transformative experiences happen at the level of a smaller chorus.
And I know I have one more question myself. I don't know if Russell has anything else he wants to chime in on. Certainly feel free to speak up, Russ. Talk to me, Joe, about repertoire selection, not necessarily how your courses specifically go about those things, because I'm sure you're not browsing the published catalog like most of us are. But what do I want to say?
I'll say this. I'll say that my chorus is browsing the published catalog more than it ever has.
Okay, great. Tell me why.
Because, and I don't say this because I'm a staff member, quite honestly, the Barbershop Harmony Society is just publishing music that is exciting, that is recognizable to average people. I talk a lot in my travels about, we often reference the term kibber, the people who don't like the evolution of the barbershop music.
Yep.
And I am a strong believer that we have to evolve or we're going to die. There's only one place right now that you can hear classical music, and it's on the classical station. And the people who listen to classical music, and I am a lover of classical music, but that population is shrinking. And we have found a resurgence of a cappella music. We see it on TV shows all the time. There are movies about it. It's all over college campuses, and we need to allow barbershop to be a part of that. So it's my belief that barbershop is not a style or genre of music that you could put a date to. Barbershop music is not music that took place in the 1890s to 1920s. In my opinion, barbershop music is a style of arranging any genre of music. There have been successful arrangements of Scott Joplin's Entertainer and Beethoven's Fifth and Jason Mraz. If we look at our music as long as we keep it consonant and homophonic, as long as we keep the tenor harmonizing above the melody, as long as we keep it 4-part and a cappella and things like that, we should be able to listen to it and say that's barbershop. The problem, I guess, today is that no one's writing melodies anymore that we can actually then arrange. So I guess the thing that we need to do as barbershoppers is find the music that is being written today that does have a melody and that does work well with the consonant harmonies that we use in barbershop. And I think that a staff member that recently stepped away, Adam Scott, did a wonderful job of finding those arrangements.
He really did.
Of finding new arrangements that were recognizable to the general public, to non-members, and publish them. So I think the Harmonizers right now are working on a concert that we're going to do in 2 weeks, and we call it American Icon. And it's just music from different decades of American icons. So Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole to we're doing Michael Jackson and Billy Joel. We're doing Neil Diamond. And I would say of the songs that we're singing, I think 3 or 4 of them are all stock arrangements, stock society publications, which I'm really, really proud of.
That's very cool.
One of the things, though, that I have changed recently, that the Harmonizers have changed in the way that we learn our repertoire. We recently decided, again, as I said before, as we were evaluating ourselves as we compare to a community choral arts organization, we realized that choral arts organizations don't keep music in their repertoire for 5 or 6 years. The harmonizers had New York, New York, and Music of the Night, and favorites like that in our repertoire for 12 years, for 20 years. And we would close every show with it. And then we wonder why it's always the same people coming to our shows and our audience doesn't grow. And we ask some of our audience, well, why didn't you come back to the show? And they said, because I've heard all of the songs that you've sung over and over again. So we have recently committed ourselves to aligning musically more to the choral arts organization as well. And we now learn seasons of music. So every January, we completely wipe the slate clean and learn an entirely new repertoire based on a topic or a subject. So like I said, 2 years ago when we went to France, all of the music that we learned was World War II related, and this year it's all American icon related. Topics like British bands and things like that. Gospels and spirituals. There are plenty of barbershop arrangements that lend themselves to that. So we have a number of themes that we are looking forward to doing over the course of the next couple of years that will allow us to bring in a guest group that relate to that specific theme, and we can market these shows to our audiences in that way. And this is our second year of doing that. Like I said, last year was all World War II music, and this year is American Icon. And I'll say that it's difficult to get my chorus to learn 12 new songs in a year and perform that at a very, very high quality and compete as well and strive to keep ourselves in the medals. Is a very, very difficult thing, but I expect that once this becomes routine, my chorus will be able to learn music faster than ever. Once they get in the routine of constantly learning and not just learning 2 or 3 or 4 new songs a year, that we're going to see some pretty extreme benefits to that in the future.
That's great. That's great. I love that kind of seasonal planning that you're right is more along the lines of how community choruses work.
Right. You never see anyone singing Mozart's Requiem 5 years in a row.
We close every concert with it. So
or amateur.
Along the lines. Sorry, Rob.
I was just going to say. Sorry, I was going to say you don't see theater groups putting on the same play every year either.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And we've been talking along those lines, trying to come up with ways to increase the turnover of songs without throwing all our members under the bus who don't learn necessarily all that fast. We don't want to just say, okay, you can't sing with us anymore, but we want to find ways to get more songs. We introduced Witchcraft and Daydream in the last 3 weeks. Well, last night we had a chorus barbecue, and the guy said, hey, let's try it, and they sang them. I mean, I wouldn't go on stage with them like that, but they sang it without looking at the music. They got through the song. So
that is great.
They picked up those 2 songs that fast. So it is great. I'm really excited about that. So,
but I got to tell you that the music that I'm singing with the harmonizers right now is easier music than we ever usually do. And the thing that you don't want to perform boring music, but the thing that we've noticed is that the audience likes it because we make sure that everything that we're picking is recognizable. Just like Daydream and Witchcraft, just like you said, Russell. We want to make sure that the music that we're performing is recognizable to our audience. So we're singing Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline, and we're singing Michael Jackson's Thriller. And these are actually really, for the most part, really simple arrangements. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 4. And we're also singing some Johnny Cash stuff, and we're singing Ghost Riders in the Sky. And just just a few weeks ago, we started learning it, and boy, we didn't realize how many words those basses had to sing in that song. So we just made the verses bass solos, and we have 3 basses who are going to memorize each verse and sing them. And, it's finding those opportunities when the chorus does become overwhelmed with learning that we can say, okay, let's make this easier for you, and the audience will still be able to love it. The chorus will still be able to perform it. The audience will still love it, and hopefully we will end up creating a larger audience and a larger group of people who learn about the Alexandria Harmonizers and come to our performances.
Is that the Larry Wright arrangement of Ghost Riders?
No, it is the Pete Ruppe.
Oh, okay.
But I've noticed that there are like 7 or 8 arrangements of that song out there, so it took a little bit of searching.
Yeah.
Joe, I'm wondering if you see, you're a music judge as well, right?
Yeah.
If you see in your music judge travels, or even in your coaching travels, the patterns that I feel I see, and I don't get out of the NED too much, but I go to conventions and I often see, just from an audience member standpoint, choruses picking music that's too challenging for them, perhaps because Gold Medal Quartet A has done it before or used to do it, and that seems to be more of a pattern to me than it should. Do you see that in your travels? Am I out on left field, or tell me what you think?
No, I think that you probably I probably experience that fairly often. I think that another thing that I experience is choruses just. You'll either experience the chorus or quartet that like to sing a song because they like to listen to Vocal Spectrum singing it or Crossroads singing it, and it's far above the level of difficulty that they should be approaching when singing songs. One of the things that is important to recognize in that is that if you really, really like a song, you could turn to any arranger and ask them to rearrange the song, for the most part, at a level that is more appropriate for your ensemble. There are dozens and dozens of arrangers out there that are highly skilled, much like yourself, Eric, that can take an incredibly complex chart that was arranged specifically for an international champ and make it accessible. Now, there are some songs that are just ridiculously difficult, but I think that there are other songs that arrangers make them difficult for the groups that are singing them. So consider going out there and asking asking an arranger to arrange a song that's already been done, but rearrange it to the level of your ensemble. There is sometimes something to be said about giving your group something that is a little more difficult than they should be doing, and it stretches their abilities, which is also okay. You know, and if you get yourself caught up in that method, that's okay, unless you do it all the time with every single song that you sing. I guess one of the things that bothers me more as an audience member and sometimes as a judge is the group that sings a song and doesn't know why the arranger did what they did. Yeah. So, any embellishment, one of the things that makes barbershop unique is the embellishments that we use, the swipes, the echoes, the bell chords, so on and so forth. And an embellishment is something that was put in by the arranger. So when we sing My Wild Irish Rose, and the bass sings Rose, and the bass and baritone do that wonderful swipe up on Rose in the first phrase of Wild Irish Rose, that swipe is there. It takes it from a great big, beautiful major chord, and it swipes up into a dominant seventh chord, and the only reason it's there, the song could absolutely survive without that swipe. But the reason the swipe is there is to take a beautifully open and consonant relaxed chord and tighten it up and create tension. Music is just a series of tension and release. And if we don't understand why that swipe is there, and that swipe is there to create tension and then to release it again afterwards, I don't think that we're doing the song justice. So really understanding the embellishments that an arranger put in, the embellishments of a song, or to take it one step further, you often go to any district convention or international convention, and you'll always hear a song that is done 3 or 4 times. And I guess that's because it's popular and we enjoy listening to it, or because the song is accessible to many levels of quartets. But we find that most quartets sing it the exact same way it was done originally. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, and I say quartets, I mean choruses as well, for the most part, they don't do it as good as the original group. So, for instance, right now I'm doing one of the contest songs that I'm doing with Pride of Baltimore is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And I'm surprised I'm doing that song because I've always said if you're going to do a song like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, you either have to do it better than the original group, better than Judy Garland, okay, which is nearly impossible, or you have to put an entirely different spin on it so that it's like you're listening to it again for the very first time. And I think that that's something that we really need to encourage our choruses and quartets to do more often when they perform music, is have an opinion about it. There are no wrong opinions when it comes to music, I guess, unless you're going to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow Skies Are Blue, maybe, but still it's art, and I guess you could have your own opinion to that. But, having your own opinion to the music that you're singing really make a mark on the song. And my goal with that song with Pride of Baltimore is to make people listen to that for the first time again. Maybe it might not be as good as the first time Judy Garland sang it in The Wizard of Oz, but can I do something with the song that's going to not allow the audience to go into autopilot when it's being performed, and really listen to that song again for either to renew the meaning of the song or to bring a different meaning to the song. So that's something that I guess, if I had a pet peeve in judging, is something that I hear very, very often in contests.
It's a great example. Actually, my course is learning the same exact song, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because I'm really pushing them to think about the lyric, and especially in the verse that no one really thinks about. But when raindrops tumble all around, we had a wonderful conversation to name some things that tumble, and raindrops don't normally come to mind, and think about the poetry that is there to be expressed. And we had a wonderful conversation about that, and just really trying to push them to think about the lyric and moving the music forward like that.
Yeah, there was a great. I had found a great video, and unfortunately, I've not seen it. I've not been able to find it on YouTube or anywhere online. But I have a DVD of Leonard Bernstein with the NBC Orchestra. And Leonard Bernstein was going through the archives of Beethoven's archives, and he had found all of Beethoven's notes to Beethoven's Fifth, all of the notes that he got rid of and scratched out. And he took those sections that Beethoven discarded from Beethoven's Fifth, and he put them back into Beethoven's Fifth. And he had the NBC Orchestra play with the versions that he discarded, and then he tried to think, well, why did Beethoven discard this, and why did he end up with the one that he ultimately chose?
Yeah.
And when you listen to that, it's incredible, because you can hear really why the versions that he discarded didn't work. And I always use that. I always take that approach. While barbershop is not nearly as sophisticated, I guess, as Beethoven,
Right.
I always take that approach when I'm thinking about, when I'm performing a brand new song that was arranged specifically for us, or if I'm taking a David Wright chart that has been done a bunch of different times, I'll say, I wonder why David used this swipe.
Yeah.
And that will help me to understand do I need to move it faster? Do I need to make it louder? Do I need to create tension, release tension? So I'll often spend a lot of time in my personal preparation before the rehearsal to understand why we're doing it, why the embellishment is there, so on and so forth.
Yeah, perfect example. What wound up on the cutting room floor, and why did this come to us in this way? Great way to think about it. Wonderful. Well, unless there's any other questions from out there on the internets, I will wrap things up here. It's been a wonderful conversation. I hope to share this on YouTube as soon as we can and share it out there. Joe, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate your time away from your lovely wife and giving of your time to us here in the NED.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. Great chatting.
You bet. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Eric.
Bye-bye, guys.